Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you guys had a great, relaxing weekend. You guys got a little break from work for the week. But yeah, it's Monday, so we're back at it again. But before we start today, I do want to make a few announcements. And this is, remember, I was telling you guys about the Spirit Week. So here's the calendar for the Spirit Week. If you guys send me a picture of you dressing up in these themes, just attach it to one of your homeworks, I'll give you some extra points. So you can earn a total of extra 5 points this week if you participate. And possibly if you do every single day, maybe I'll give you a homework pass. So this is the calendar for the week. So for today, it will be pajama day. Tomorrow will be Christmas in March, so wear some Christmas clothes, wear a Santa hat, do something, do your work in Christmas clothes. Wednesday will be We Love Pets Day, so maybe when we have our Zoom session, you can bring your pet, your dog, your hamsters, your birds, your cats, anything you have, you can bring it and show us through Zoom. On Friday is Teamwork Day, so wear your favorite team shirt or your jersey. And then Friday is Family Selfie Day, so snap a photo with your family. You can upload it to me. And like I said, if you do it for all 5 days, I'll give you maybe a homework pass for next week. And then also try to tag your pictures through our social media at St. Trivius LA. Okay? So for today in the morning, since it is Monday, I think we should just start off. We haven't done it in a few weeks because we haven't been together. But we're just gonna go ahead and meditate or take a deep breath for a minute, 60 seconds today. So we'll do our 60 seconds right now. And then after, we'll just get into the lesson. So for Monday, we'll just take it easy. So here we go with the 60 seconds. All right, so remember at this time, make sure you're comfortable. You can either lay down, take a seat, just relax yourself. And remember, rotate your neck if anything. But we'll start the 60 seconds, and the 60 seconds starts now. And that's time. Open your eyes. Hope you feel better. All right, so last time we met, we talked about the trading cities that started to develop in Italy, and there was four major trading cities that developed: Venice and Genoa, which were like the main ones because they got really rich from having the seaports because they were the ones trading along the Mediterranean Sea, so they got all the goods and they would ship them out. And then we had Milan and Florence, and both of these, Milan was making weapons and distributed them, and Florence was known for their making of fabrics and wool. And these cities got really, really wealthy. And remember, at this time, they were all just different cities. They weren't really a part of Italy, even though now they are all a part of Italy. They were kind of all independent. And they all became really wealthy. And some of the most wealthy people in these cities began to rule the cities. And at the time, all these wealthy rulers want to show off how much money they had, and they were trying to outdo each other. So they were trying to make their city the most beautiful, who can have the biggest buildings, who can the most artwork, everything like that. And that's pretty much what was going on at the time in Italy. And this all started because of Marco Polo's um, love for the Chinese and their culture. So all this trade started to happen, and it pretty much gave the rebirth of Italy and the rebirth of the Silk Road, and these cities became real rich. Today, we are going to focus on just one city, which is the city of Florence, and how Florence became extremely wealthy due to this one guy, Medici, and how he was able to grow the city and make it beautiful, and how he was able to start something called the Italian Renaissance. But first, let's go ahead and review. So number one, what were the four great trade cities in Italy in the 1300s? The greatest trade cities in Italy was Milan, Genoa, Venice, and Florence. Okay. Number two, why did the location of Genoa and Venice on the seacoast give them an advantage over most inland cities? So the reason why Genoa and Venice had an advantage over everybody else is because they were the seaports. They were the ones that were getting all the goods first, so they can easily ship and bring in goods at their harbors, and they didn't really have to pay those luxury taxes of transporting because they had the port. So everything, they got to see everything first. Number two, how were governments ran in big Italian cities? Remember, the big Italian cities, they were ran by a single rich merchant family, and these families controlled the government. This government was called the Signoria, and this is pretty much what they were doing was they were growing their wealth on trade, and they were competing each other to see whose city can grow the richest from trade, and they also wanted to see who can become the most powerful and build their cities to be the most beautiful. So today, like I said, we are going to talk about the city of Florence. So today our objective is going to be, we're going to be able to explain how Florence became the center of arts and learning, and how Florence was pretty much the city that started the whole Italian Renaissance of the 1300s. And we'll get to that now. So this is a picture of Florence, and you can see that's a huge cathedral that was built, and this was built by the Medici family, who we're going to talk about in a second. But if you remember, they built these huge cathedrals with huge domes, and they were used to show off their prestige, their wealth, their power. I think I've showed you guys this picture before, this is one of the coolest cities over there, and it's Florence. So in the 1300s, traded goods from Asia, they came and they poured into Europe. All these goods were coming in from Asia. Many of these items came to the Italian ports. As a result, these merchant families grew these cities, and these cities were becoming really wealthy. As the families grew rich and powerful, they wanted to show everyone what their money can buy. Although these factors affected most big Italian city, one city, such as Florence right here, it stands out as the example of trade and wealth at the time, and we're going to talk about this and why Florence was known as the example, or the richest city in Italy at the time. So that's a picture of Medici, and he was pretty much the ruler of Florence. So although Florence's wealth began with the wool trade, banking increased their wealth. So he was a banker, and he had this idea, and his ideas are still used to this day, and he was the one that actually created it. So bankers in Florence, they kept money from all merchants from all over Europe. So they kept money, they were saving money, they protected the money, and what they did was they loaned this money. So the bankers, they made money by charging this thing called interest. And interest is like, if I go ahead and lend you $5, you're going to pay me back in 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks, instead of paying me $5, I'm going to charge you interest, and you're going to pay me $10. And that's kind of what this thing was. So it's interest. You want to charge interest, and borrowers are making money off charging people's interest and lending people money. Okay, so this was a certain percentage of the loan, and these bankers in Florence, the greatest bankers in Florence was that guy. His name was Cosimo de' Medici, and he was the most wealthy banker in Florence, and he actually ruled Florence. As a ruler, Cosimo de' Medici, he wanted Florence to be the most beautiful city in the world. So with all his money that he was making, he decided, I'm going to hire artists to decorate my palace. I'm going to pay architects to design the buildings in Florence. And pretty much what we're going to do is we're just going to make this city beautiful and show everybody that this is what my wealth can buy, and this is how powerful I am. So Cosimo de' Medici, he also valued education. And the reason why he valued education is because of his banks, and he wanted to educate these people because banks needed workers who could read and write and understand math. So what he wanted to do was he wanted to build these schools and build libraries so people can go there and learn and get educated. So eventually when they get older, they can work in his banks, or they can help beautify or build things in his city. Okay, so during the time that Medici's family held power, Florence became the center of Italian art, literature, and culture. In the other Italian cities, rich families tried to outdo the Medicis and each other in their supports of art and learning, but the Medici family was, since they were the most wealthy, they were able to buy everything, hire artists, hire architects, and they were the first ones to really start to beautify their city, and they became like the standard. Everybody wanted to outdo Florence, but they really couldn't do it because Florence had all this money to pay for all these artists and to pay for all these people to come in and beautify the city. Just think, if you're wealthy, you can buy a lot more things. If you're not as wealthy, you just can't really do that. So the Medici family pretty much was in first place in making their city the best. So, because of their love for art and education, this was a very key time, and it started this new movement called the Renaissance. And the Renaissance means rebirth, or during this time it just follows, it means the times that followed after the Middle Ages. So this was the Middle Ages were kind of like a dark time with the Black Death, a lot of people dying, people taking over each other. And the Renaissance, when they started to bring all this art and education into the city, it started this new rebirth and this love for art and education again. So that's kind of what it was. So it was this interest. So everyone became interested again in the Greek and the Romans writings, and they wanted to bring it all back. Kind of like right now, how you see, like in school, how we had the 80s day, the 90s day, how we want to relive these eras, and we'll bring back the 80s music, we'll bring back the 90s hip hop, we'll bring back all these new fashions. And it's kind of like that. That's like a renaissance for that. Right back then, it was a renaissance for Roman art, and Greek writings. And they wanted to bring all this art and love back. Another thing that they did was they started to focus, it started to change how people thought. They started to think of themselves as individuals. And when people started to think about individuals, their philosophy of life changed, people's way of living changed. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow. One thing about the Renaissance is that it affected not a lot of people. It only really affected the rich, because only the rich people were getting the art. Only the rich people were getting the education. So this Renaissance, it's kind of a tricky thing. It didn't really affect all of Europe, but from the things that came out of the Renaissance, you guys are very familiar with, which we'll touch base on tomorrow. So as a quick review, as the Italian cities grew wealthier, the one that stood out the most wealthy, or stood out from everybody else, was the city of Florence. The city of Florence was ruled, and their government was ruled by this wealthy family, a banking family called Cosimo de' Medici, and they focused on banking. And not only did they do banking, but they also traded wool, so don't get that confused. So the Medici family, they came really wealthy off banking, when what they were doing was charging interest. So they were collecting all the money from all of Florence, and they were loaning it out to people. And when they were loaning it out to people, they were charging people extra money when they had to return the money, and that was interest. So like I said, if you borrow five, I'll give you $5, but the next day, every single day you don't pay me back, I'm gonna charge you an extra dollar. So by the time you pay me back, maybe I'll get $10 off the five that I lent you. So with all this money, he wanted to make Florence the capital and make it the city that was the most beautiful. So he hired artists, he hired architects, and he started to beautify the city, and he wanted to show his wealth like this. Another thing that he did was he started to improve education. He built universities, he built libraries, he collected books, because he figured he wanted to have educated people, because he's going to need people to work in his city. He's going to need bankers, he's going to need architects, so he might as well start to educate these people. When they started to educate these people, the arts grew, literature grew, architecture grew, buildings started to come up, and everything was a lot better. And because of this love and the art of education, this started a new rebirth of this whole new era called the Renaissance era. And the Renaissance era was pretty much the rebirth. And this was the era that gave a rebirth to the arts, to the Greek literature, to the Roman literature, to just the Roman culture in all of Europe. And this was the time right after the Middle Ages. So thanks to Florence, thanks to the Medici family, he's going to bring in this new era called the Renaissance era, which we'll talk about later. So for homework, I want you guys to answer these three questions. Number one, how did Florence help begin the Renaissance? Number two, why was education so important to Cosimo de' Medici? And number three, how did Florence rise to fame? So if you have any questions, just let me know. All right, so today we talked about Florence and the Medici family. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and send me a message through Classroom or through YouTube, and I'll help you out there. Also, don't forget to send me a photo of you guys in your PJs. If you do that, I'll give you some extra points, and if you do all 5 days, I'll give you a homework pass. So today is PJ day, so send me a picture of you in your PJs. It's not weird. It's part of Spirit Week. And then tomorrow, I'm looking forward to you guys wearing Christmas outfits in March. So we'll have some spirit that way. And like I said, if you do all 5 days, I'll give you a homework pass. So if you don't have any questions, I will see you guys all tomorrow.